Well, when you're given the choice of what you can buy out there, the organics, non-organics, the natural, involving the GMOs and all of this, this is for Richard and Vicky. There was a recent consumer attitude study that showed 95% of consumers are buying food based on three key factors, really: taste, nutrition, and cost. Now, is that ring true pretty much from what you see with the home delivery
Definitely,
service?
definitely. I know with our customer base, I don't know if Richard could say the same thing. He has a larger pool of people to pull from, but it seems that once they get used to what's available locally, then the organic doesn't matter. So then they're looking at cost and quality, quality being the most important to our customers, and I think for most consumers in general as well. So quality is definitely the biggest concern, and then cost obviously is also in there, and if people are familiar with what is around and the variety they can have, then organic and whatever labels attached to it becomes a minor issue for most people.
Would you say the same thing, Richard?
Yeah, I would agree. And I assume the three things you read off were not necessarily in that order.
No. Cost has to be a big issue.
Well, we constantly, obviously, as a retailer, I don't care if you're Whole Foods or if you're Walmart at the other extreme, every retailer has to be cost conscious and keeping costs down, and that is a big concern of all of our customers. But as Vicky said, quality, taste, variety, all those things come into play. It's just very, very difficult, once again, to source everything that your customers necessarily want. In Alex's farm, for example, the scale that he grows on and the way he distributes his product, it's fairly narrow, small channel, and it works great for him. In our case, it's once again, it's just the logistics and it's the supply and demand. What drives the cost up of organic product today is that as long as I've been doing this, organic product, the actual need way outstrips the supply all the time. It's all those products that we try to carry organically. I hear from my stores daily, how come you did not ship this product? How come you did not ship this product? And clearly, 75% of our out of stocks from our warehouse on a nightly basis are organic products. That the demand, once again, is just way, way larger than what farmers can supply. I honestly think that you could get to a point where conventional versus organic, there could be a shift in acreage, and if enough people are growing organically, then that will just become the norm someday. We're not even close to being there yet.
So when it comes to the chains, it sounds like it's organic is the thing, but if you can get it delivered, and I know you have a lot of local too, but when you're with your service, though, it sounds like it's people just want it local. That's a big thing, so that way they know it's fresh.
We definitely have a core of people who are interested in organics, but when people become familiar with products from certain farms, whether you're getting it from a delivery service like Carolina Grown, or you're going to the farmer's market and you're establishing those relationships, and you become comfortable with farms like Bo's farm or Alex's farm, then at that point you know how they operate and where their ethics lie and all of that, and that becomes part of your food, and that becomes something to people.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And that's what we found for our base. So.
Now, as consumers, we have a lot of choices with what we buy as far as food, but now farmers, with Bo and you, Alex, you also have a lot of choices with what you grow. How do your choices sort of affect the rest of us? Like maybe you all decide to grow one thing, so maybe that's more, but I mean, how does that affect all of us with what you all decide to grow? Start with you, Bo.
Well, of course, on our commercial acres, we utilize crop rotations there. So, and of course, we have to look at several things, economics being a big factor. Are the price levels with fertilizers and seed and different things, do they match up with the commodity market such that we can make a living? Because ultimately we have to be able to buy food as well.
Sure. Well, you were talking about the corn too, though, in the Midwest, how the drought wiped us, so that was an issue.
That's right. So a lot of those decisions we make because we are trying to have a good crop rotation and keep that same acreage mix. Now, with the produce side of our business and with our roadside stand, we have pretty much settled on a core group of products that fit our business and our model from a time standpoint. We can grow the strawberries in the spring, and that fits the time where we can have the time to devote to them and devote to that market. Now, we do grow other things that are ready with the strawberries. You know, we have onions, and we have squash and potatoes and okra and different summer type vegetables that are coming along there that we can sell with our sweet corn. So yes, we're conscious of those decisions, but it's more that we've developed our market to the point that we know our consumers and customers want these things, and so we know that we're going to grow them on an annual basis.
Alex, do you have a lot of choices too to make?
We do, and of course it's a lot different than, you know, Bo is living in both worlds. He's in the commodity world where not only, of course, he has hogs, and I assume some of your stuff is going to your hogs, or are you sending it all?
No, our hogs, we
You're
are
getting feed
contracted
in.
with
Gotcha.
Murphy Brown's.
So he's really weighing in the commodity world. He's really weighing not only, of course, right now they're at record prices for corn and soybeans, so that's good.
No, not now.
But
Maybe a year ago, but I can trust you, not now.
but they're having to weigh a lot of factors, and particularly inputs. And the other end is, of course, they have to borrow a lot of money to do that, so they have to weigh that cost of doing that. On our end, our entire business is consumer driven, kind of like Vicky's. And we've been at it a long time, but our customers tell us what they want and what they like. And because 70% of our food goes across the table at farmers market, and I know the people who are eating it, and they'll tell you quick if they don't like it. And so, or they'll say, can you grow a red one or a green one or a blue one or a pink one? And so we grow what they want, and because we're maximizing, we're so small and have such finite amount of land, we have to maximize everything we have. So there's no lost leaders in the
Alex
mix.
hit on a great point there, and that's one of the beauties of agriculture, not only in our state but in our country. If the consumers want it, the farmers will grow it. I had a gentleman who's in the swine industry. He told me one time, he said, "Bo, if they want pork chops in blue boxes with pink bows, if they're willing to pay for it, we'll give them pork chops in blue boxes and pink bows." And I think that that's important to know, that as consumers we have these choices, and that we can, when we let folks know what we want, we're gonna have that opportunity.
Yeah,
It does come with a cost, obviously, and it's one of the other things that we do have great rules and regulations in business in place. We need to make sure that we don't over-regulate so that the small growers that cost of production doesn't put them out of business. So we need to make sure that everything that we have in place is done in the way it should be, so that folks like Alex and myself with our produce business can afford to stay in business, so that we aren't just being sourced by folks that can handle all 102 stores.
I think that attention to consumer choice is actually going to be very important for the future of GMO foods as well. So for example, there's a really interesting project in Georgia where there's a scientist, and she's trying to remove the allergens from peanuts. So people with these very strong peanut allergies can enjoy a food that the rest of us enjoy. And I think that that's a really interesting example, because that's a classic sort of scary thing when people think about GMO foods is, oh, what if you end up with an allergen like a peanut allergen in a food that I don't normally associate that with? Well, the same technology can be used to take away those allergens as well. And when we start introducing those kinds of choices to consumers, I think that's going to make a big difference.
Well, going back again to it, like I said, GMOs, I think sometimes when people hear GMOs, genetically modified organisms, it sounds kind of scary, and you've been talking about how it's really not, it doesn't have to be that scary. But with the growing population, is it possible to feed everybody without using GMOs? I mean,
I think it's going to be very challenging to, when you project the numbers, like President Wooten was talking about, not only the population growth numbers, but the dwindling land on which we grow those calories. And 70% of our water, as Bo was talking about right now, is used for agricultural purposes. Yet every year we lose more of that water to salination, and we can't use it for those purposes. And so all of these resources that we depend on to feed this growing population are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So that means that the plants that we grow and the animals that we grow are going to have to be more and more and more efficient. And we are starting to enter a phase in many of our staple crops where the gains we're making from traditional breeding are flattening out. We're still making gains, but they're not at the same steep part of the curve that they've traditionally been on. And so I think if we're going to keep pace with the population and the dwindling resources, we're going to have to rely on modern technologies.
Alex?
Well, my understanding is, for instance, FAO says that we already produce enough food for 9 billion people. And sometimes it's not in the right place, and sometimes it's not by the right people. And so a lot of the focus of at least the growing population needs to be as much who's growing the food and where it's being grown as much as what kind of it is. But there's also the papaya as a case in point, which is why they've done GMO on that. But so I think, sometimes we rush to this, we got to feed this huge population where already maybe we already have enough. But I think also if you look at most yield statistics, again, I'm not an expert on this, but with corn and soybeans, and a lot of it is fairly similar depending on the year. Really, really bad years, GMO may come out better. Normal years, it's fairly even on corn and soybeans. Cotton's even higher. Organic cotton produces more than regular cotton in most years.
I think Alex brings up an excellent point, and that is when you think about things globally, it can actually obscure local problems. And so there are regions of the world where if you think globally about the amount of calories we produce, you think, well, why can't we just move all these calories from the Midwest down to sub-Saharan Africa? And there are any number of distribution and political problems and monetary problems with doing that. And so I think that GMOs can be a part of that solution by offering tailor-made crops to help local populations. And I think that golden rice is an excellent example of that, where there are populations where people get most of their calories from a single staple crop, rice. And as a result, they have vitamin A deficiencies and that affect children. Dr. Irons could probably talk more about the results of vitamin A deficiency. But we can tailor crops to those regions with those deficiencies to help those people directly, right? And that gets back to the local aspect that we all support.
Just out of curiosity, what's in the future for GMOs? Can you speak to, just basically speaking, what can we look forward to, or what's coming?
Personally, I think the most important transition is going to be transitioning from a focus on those input traits that help the farmer to output traits that help the consumer, and especially address local problems for consumers.
Anything specific as far as the traits? You mean as far as getting vitamins, like you said, the enriched rice and all that? Or?
Yeah, I think you can add vitamins. I think you can make oil content more healthy in a lot of staple crops like soybeans and rapeseed that are grown in parts of the world. And then I think there are more exotic examples where people are looking at producing vaccines in plants that can be grown locally, where distributing and transporting modern vaccines like you and I would get at a doctor's office just isn't practical. But if you can produce it in a banana, you might be able to vaccinate a kid against a deadly disease.
Wow. It sounds like with you, Dr. Ironzo, when it comes right down to it, if you're eating healthy, the key is just to get people eating healthy. Whether it's, depending on what it comes from, organic or natural. But I mean, the key is to just get fresh food and eat well.
The best that we can. The majority of we're looking at a group of people who I dare say would never have a problem buying whatever it is they want to feed their families. The majority of the patients that I see every day and every week in our clinics and with the medical students and residents are low-income families who do not have those choices, not going to be able to. So what I've got to advise them differently about how to just be sure it's safe, how to vary their diet, spend more time trying to keep them from depending upon the various fast food outlets for the quick, lots of calories meal than anything else, because it really is. It's cheaper for them. It is cheaper for them. We can do it, but it takes marching them down to Lowe's Foods with a nutritionist or some trained layperson to walk them and say, this is how you do this is where you can get this cheaper, this is how you can get this cheaper, or buying locally, they can do that too, or growing some of their own. Then at least in February of the year, which is rainy season over there, I'm in sub-Saharan Africa, southern Africa, I'm in Zambia, taking care of children there. They depend primarily on maize, or corn. That is where they get the vast majority of their calories. They are vitamin deficient. If they live in the bush and they're not immunized against measles, and if they're vitamin A deficient, they're much more likely to die of measles than they would have been if they weren't. So these kinds of things are real to those people, and our farmers have to be thinking about those things too, and our scientists are thinking about those things too. So it varies with where people are, but we want them to do the best they can to get what they can of a balanced diet into them within their economic constraints.
I grew up on the farm, so I'm very familiar.
Yeah.
We had our own garden. We always had fresh produce, and we were very fortunate that way. But there are so many fewer family farms, and a lot of us still will try to grow some tomatoes in the backyards or do what we can. But so many people just don't have the advantage of having their own farm anymore. I mean, what all of you, as a farmer, being involved in this today with our discussion, what's on my plate? What would you tell? What would you like to let people know, maybe about the food that they're getting? Bo, do you want to start with you? What would you like to tell people?
I would be glad to. Number one, I am proud to be a family farmer. Over 95%, some will say it's close to 99% of our farms are owned by families, so they are family farms. They may be larger scale than what we remember that grandmama and granddaddy had, and a lot of people are 2 to 3 generations removed from the farms. But the main thing that I would like for people to know about our farm and what we're doing is that we are trying to look after that next generation. Anything that I grow on our farm, from our produce to our livestock side, I am proud for my children to eat that. I don't mind my kids going to the strawberry patch and filling up after school when they stop by there. We're making sure not only that for my kids, but that for your kids, we're doing what we know to do, which is grow the food that they want to eat.
Right. Vicky?
I think a big thing that people can do is if you haven't had, your own little garden plot, even if you're on, in an apartment, you can kind of grow on the patio or whatever, then go visit a farm, talk to people, get immersed in that, and learn, what is available locally, how to cook it, so you can try to avoid some of those processed foods as well, and just try to keep your mind open to what is available, whether through a grocery chain or a local roadside stand, or going directly to the farm, going to see Bo or somebody like that. So the best thing we can do.
All right, Dr. Hines? Get ready. It's coming.
No, what I would like people to know about what to eat, and what I think about it is that what I would want them to do is to know that, to be able to be confident based upon their knowledge, based upon their information which they've received, that what they're feeding their families is nutritious and safe and has been handled in a safe manner. I want them too to know, I badly want them to know the people who grow them and how they're grown, the realities of it. When we eat animals, those animals have to live and die for us to eat them. And that's just the reality. To understand that and to understand it, that's what human beings do, at least those of us who are not a vegetarian. And once they understand that and understand that we're all on this planet dependent upon one another and dependent upon this generation for the health of the next generation and for the water quality and for the food security, whether it's here or in southern Africa, that we're all in this together. We're neighbors, and we ought to be learning as much as we can about our neighbors, supporting one another, and where there are problems, confronting them openly and in a civilized way.
Okay. I should have come to you last. That was an explanation. Remember that next time. Richard?
I think regardless of what kind of food you buy or where you buy your food, I think Dr. hit the nail on the head, is that everybody has different means, and you have to look at your own personal situation and make personal choices. And all the things we have discussed today, whether it's GMOs or local or organic, feelings run deep for folks. I don't eat organic produce. I'm in the produce business, but I have a daughter who swears by it. She didn't get that from me. And so I think all produce is safe. I don't think anybody in this industry wants to go out and put a product out there that's not safe. That's their livelihood. They understand that people ingest it. And so I think it's a personal choice.
Yeah, that's what it is. There are a lot of choices out there,
Yeah.
which is a good thing. Dr. Copenhaver?
I'd like to sort of emphasize two things. One is, I could tell you I'd be happy to eat genetically modified foods, but I do a lot of things that aren't great for me. I sometimes drink scotch, sometimes I drive my car too fast. But what I can tell you is that I have, 2 young children, and I would be happy to feed them GMO food, and I would do anything to protect them, right? So that's the level of confidence that I have in the technology. The other thing that I want to emphasize is that you guys and all of you listening and watching out there are amazing people, because you're taking time out of your day to educate yourselves, and that's the most important thing. The choices that you make as individuals are your choices, and I respect those choices. But the thing that I would ask people to do is base those choices on data and on education and on facts, rather than hearsay or just gut reactions. So those are the things that I would part with.
Alex?
I always say, and Bo probably will agree with this, it's an exciting time to be in agriculture, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of science on all sides that are leading us down some really exciting roads, and people are coming back to food. We went through a generation or two after the war that it was all good to have out of a can and no one knew how to cook. And now what's driving Vicky's business and even Bo's produce business and your business is that people are really interested in food, both from a quality of life standpoint, but from a nutrition standpoint. And we see it at Farmers Market. Sometimes we're into third generation now of people who have grown up coming to market with their parents, and this is how they do now, because they didn't used to know how to do that. And some of it is their gardening, and some of it is their cooking more, and some of it is the cooking channel, and there's too many cooking shows. But whatever the case might be, folks are really coming back to food and thinking about it in a different way that I think is driving a really great time to be in agriculture and to be in the food business.
And it's a great time to be a consumer. All you have to do is walk through the State Farmers Market or anywhere, and you see all the choices that are available to us. So we really owe it to everyone in the agricultural business for bringing all that to us.
Right.
I mean, it's been fantastic. So.